Yes, good morning, everyone, and welcome back to the Football Tribe UG channel. Robert Kesakos is your usual suspect. Welcome back to yet another live broadcast on your favorite football updates channel. It's always a pleasure to be back. And on this beautiful Friday morning, at 24 minutes past 9 a.m., the 13th of February, 2026. Yes, tomorrow is Valentine's Day. Are you guys going to celebrate with your loved ones? Not sure I've ever celebrated Valentine's. Not that I've ever felt the obligation to, no, even the urge to do so. But, anyways, it is Valentine's Day tomorrow for those of you that could be celebrating that. So, be sure to make it a point, perhaps, to celebrate your loved ones, whichever way you may see fit. Anyways, this beautiful morning, we'll be talking about Arsenal's narrow escape against Brentford yesterday. We'll talk about Vipers' loss. Vipers are losing the match against Kitara by forfeiture, according to a FIFA disciplinary committee decision, as well as Athletic Bilbao's transfer ban that could see them not make any transfers until January 2028. So we'll be discussing that and more in today morning's podcast. But I wish to extend my sincere appreciation and gratitude towards all of you that were part of last night's broadcast as we did the watch along for the Arsenal against Brentford game, while also keeping tabs on the game between Atletico de Madrid and Barcelona. So for every single one of you that was a part of that broadcast, thank you so much for being part of the conversation. This morning, again, like I said, we will be talking about those issues. I think we need to put up a poll, question. Do you think Arsenal will win? Arsenal will still win the Premier League title after more dropped points, so let me know whether you think they will win that. Oh geez, I need to edit this poll. I need to add an option. Not sure. All right. Oh, come on. Yes. So that's the poll question this morning. Do you think Arsenal will win the Premier League title after more drop points yesterday? So do let me know what your thoughts are there on that poll question for this morning. All right. So, like I said, I hope everything is going on well with you. Just okay. So, anyways, we will be talking about the Vipers game. I mean, things have been so okay. I just got a message that required me to listen to it, and see how things go. But like I was saying, it's it's going to be. I hope not overly extended, but my anticipation is for us to have a wonderful conversation this morning. Like I said, a lot of things are happening. We're going to start here in Uganda because I think a key decision was made in the league, and you will understand why this is important as we go through it. So you'll allow me to give you background to this story. So yesterday, the Federation of Uganda Football Associations committee, the Federation of Uganda Football Associations put out, a statement offering a ruling or a judgment on some pending issues with regards to the moderation of the league and what you'd expect in that regard. But let me chat you up after my broadcast. So, all right. So that decision relates or pertains to Vipers Sports Club. Vipers Sports Club did miss the opening game of the season, having written to the Federation of Uganda Football Associations and the Uganda Premier League Secretariat that they won't be honoring that fixture. And because the rules say that if you're not going to honor a fixture for whatever reasons you may give, you have to write to the Federation and to the Uganda Premier League Secretariat 48 hours before that fixture is played, which Vipers did. And why did they write that later, or why were they not going to honor that fixture? It was a double header between Kitara and Vipers, and I think the other game was against, was it involving SC Villa? I can't recall exactly. Now, so Vipers wrote, and at the time they were protesting the new league changes. We know that the Uganda Premier League, through the Federation of Uganda Football Associations, had introduced a new league format, and that new league format still involved as many as 16 teams that were going to play a one-legged game, the way you have the format of the UEFA Champions League, where you play each opponent in your group, quote unquote, only once, no home and away, no round robin, as we are ordinarily accustomed to. So then the top 8 at the end of that would be grouped in Group A, and then the bottom, the bottom 8 will be grouped in Group B. And then at that stage, you'd then have those teams play a round robin. In that round robin would then determine the teams that advance to the respective, stage, which is the third round of the league. Now, in the Group A of top 8, you'd then have the top 6 go to play the final round. And that final round would be a single-legged fixture. Now, a single-legged fixture, again, not a round robin, similar to the first round, but if you hosted a fixture of any of those opponents in the first round, then you get to play them away. And whoever topped that group of 6 then would emerge as champion. Now, for Group B, what would happen is that if you finish in the bottom, I think the bottom 2 of Group 8, you'd automatically be relegated. Now, then you'd have 2 teams from Group A after the round robin leg form the table. At the end of that, they would play, I think, their fixtures to determine who finishes 8th and below. Then I think the 14th team on the Premier League log then would play the third team from the FIFA Big League before determining whether they get relegated or they stay in the league, or whether the other team gets promoted or they stay in the big league. In other words, the winner of that playoff stays in the Premier League or gets promoted to the Premier League or gets downgraded to the FIFA Big League, depending on the result. So, Vipers were opposed to that kind of league format. So those were the changes that had been introduced. So they were opposed to that, and they said they will not be honoring league fixtures for as long as they had not been listened to. We know that prior to that, there had been a number of meetings in which club presidents and officials met to discuss, to chart a way forward. And many of them were opposed to those changes. And after their first meeting, they had agreed for a second meeting. But before the second meeting, in which they were supposed to meet with the Federation of Ghana Football Associations, a good number of them admitted or acknowledged to receiving calls from the Federation of Uganda Football Associations, threatening them, branding them as opposition people, and things like that. So fast forward, that second meeting was had, but it did not yield any results. All it ended in was 11 clubs saying they were in support of the changes after them being threatened. Others chose to stay quiet. I think one of them was either NEC. I think NEC was one of those. Sports Club Villa wrote a letter to the Federation of Ghana Football Associations saying that they would honor their fixtures, but in protest. They would honor their fixtures, but still in protest, in disagreement of the newly format changes. So there's a lot of push back and forth. So when match day one came, Vipers Sports Club refused to honor their own fixture. Of course, having written to the Federation of Ghana Football Associations beforehand. So that game that was not played, fast forward, we negotiations behind closed doors or power brokers or rope pulling went on. And the matter went as far as the State's House because fortunately or unfortunately, the First Lady of Uganda, Janet Kataham-Seven, is also the Minister of Education and Sports with a couple of deputies in there with State Minister for Primary Education, State Minister for Higher Learning. That's I think Chrysostom Muyingo. I don't remember the one for Primary Education. Then you have State Minister for Sports, Peter Ogwang, and things like that. So there were engagements with the Federation President, Engineer Moses Magogo, who also serves as or is the husband of the Speaker of Parliament, Anita Anet Among. So there were power blockering there. So when matters got to State House, now apparently Vipers had written a letter to the First Lady, and according to reports, that letter had been snatched away. In other words, they were preventing it from getting to the First Lady, but somehow she got wind of it. She got the letter. And funny how power plays. So anyways, she gets the letter, gets to read it, they are invited, they make their case, and it took the president, so I hear, but more importantly, the First Lady, to intervene, and they called the Federation of Uganda Football Association's president to order Engineer Moses Magogo, and they told him, back off. You've introduced this thing, it's new. We know the circumstances under which it had been introduced. Very chaotic, and it did not involve all stakeholders. First of all, you had those that were in support or presumed to be in support saying, oh, this was part of, FUFA's long-term plan. We got, you remember the annual general meeting in Moroto, others cited the annual general meeting in Hoima in 2023, I think, or thereabout, and things did not add up. A lot of people were saying, no, we're not consulted. It wasn't until yesterday, around July, that we were sent a document to say this is what is happening. And even then, it wasn't a consultation. It was more of a communication. There's a difference between a communication and a consultation. If I want to consult you, I'll ask, what is your opinion about Football Tribe UG? What do you think, what changes do you think we should be making? For example, yesterday somebody suggested to me, on a thought that I've long had, is I should put a sticker that shows straight away that this is a football channel at the back of my wall, especially for purposes of these lives. And I was like, well, I'll look into that, So that's a suggestion. So when I come to seek your views, I'm consulting. But when I communicate my views to you, then that's not a consultation. I'm simply telling you what I'm planning to do. And to make it matters worse, the stakeholders weren't engaged in the sense of, we have a proposal on table, let's revise it and make suggestions and changes. And even those that were opposed to the changes weren't entirely opposed to them. They were simply saying, why are you trying to rush this? Let's give it time. Go test it in the lower leagues. We have the regional league, we have the FUFA Big League, we have the Women's Super League. Go test it out there. Of course, there was money to the tune of, I think, about 3 billion shillings plus that was attached to those changes that was, quote unquote, disguised as funding for these clubs. And yet we thought it was going to facilitate match fixing and things like that. Yet the argument in Federation of Ghana Football Associations, that's FUFA, was saying it was to improve competitiveness or to increase competitiveness in the league. So that did not happen. You did not get the sense that that was going to be the case. Anyway, for those of you that want an extended version of that, go over to the Football Tribe UG channel and look for a video or an interview. I think I'll put the link down in the description. The video or the interview I did with Aldrin Nsobuga Senior, trying to make sense of those, changes or those leaked announcements. And it didn't make much sense, really. So when Vipers failed to honor that fixture, when everything was settled finally, Ingidia Moses Magogo had to swallow his bitter pill and announce that the changes had been dropped or put to the side or shelved, and they were being taken to the, FUFA Regional League. The Regional League, we have, Kampala being one of the regions. So it was going to be taken there to be tested out. And even then, we're not hearing all the sorts of promotion that had been promised to the UPL. We're not hearing the money trickling down to those clubs in the Regional League as had been promised. So it's quite interesting that we ended up where we ended up. But anyways, all that aside, so once we revert to the old format of round robin, then Vipers come back to the fold. And by then, we're going for match day 2. So that means now, one of my expectations would have been that all the fixtures that had been played in the proposed new format be discarded, and we have a new fixture schedule, and we start afresh. I mean, it wasn't too late. It was, I think, only two games that had been played under that format. But FUFA said no. Again, it's that egoistic kind of nature or feel about leaders. So Vipers requested that they get a judgment or what's going to happen for their missed game. And they wrote letters to the Federation of Uganda Football Associations, the Uganda Premier League Secretariat, who are unresponsive until they decided to go the legal direction. And it took, I think, apparently an order or something from court to say, make a decision on this. And yesterday we did get a decision. And what was the decision? The decision was that Vipers lose the game by forfeiture. Now, of course, there were two decisions, disciplinary decisions being made by the panel. Now, in those decisions, for Vipers, they said in the case of Vipers Sports Club, regarding failure to honor a scheduled fixture against Kitara at Mandela National Stadium, Vipers Sports Club is found guilty of failing to honor a scheduled fixture in breach of Article 16 of the FUFA Ethics and Disciplinary Code. The match is declared lost by Vipers by forfeiture. The panel, relying on the discretion provided under Article 5 of the FUFA Ethics and Disciplinary Code, will not impose additional sanctions, an additional sanction of docking 3 points and 3 goals from those already accumulated or to be accumulated. No further sanctions shall be issued in regarding to this matter, and this should be considered as the final ruling accordingly. Now, Vipers who communicated on time are having to lose the game by forfeiture. But, the interesting thing or funny thing is that 2 of the members on the FUFA disciplinary committee are also high-ranking officials from Kitara Football Club. Now, the Vipers Legal and Rules Committee or Disciplinary Committee is composed of 7 members. The chairman is Geoffrey Odu. The vice chairman is Deo Kasozi of Kitara. It has Semwanga Norman Kabogoza from Kampala. It has Aniku Vincent Boga of Calvary. It has Mulihebwa Solomon of Kitara. So that's 2 members. The Kasozi Deo, the chairman of Kitara, and then Mulihebwa Solomon, also a member from, also a member of the panel. And then it also has Kasarire Dirasa from Kampala, Bisanga Henry from Maroons. Now, 2 of those members from Kitara participated in making a decision that was directly impactful, that had a direct impact or effect on their own club, because they were party to the decision that was being made. So that in itself for me is a conflict of interest. You have 2 members, part of the decision-making process in the contention of these matters, belonging to one of the clubs that is involved. In other words, it's if I'm accused of a crime, but then I sit on the panel or on a committee that is supposed to pass judgment upon a crime I committed or I'm accused of having committed, definitely I'm going to have a conflict of interest. I'm going to try and make a decision that favors me. So basically, that's what happened, or that's what's happened in this particular case. Anyway, there's another decision, and it also involves Kitara. Now, Kitara were also being accused of having fielded an unregistered or ineligible player. They were being accused by KCCFC because Kitara played KCCA, I think, on match day 2, which was their match day 1, essentially, for Kitara, having had the other fixture absconded by Vipers. So that game ended in a 1-1 draw against KCCFC. So KFC, in the case of Kitara FC, following a petition by KCCFC regarding the alleged fielding of an ineligible player, it would be unjust to impose a disciplinary sanction on a club for a technical error that was beyond its control. Kitara FC did not field an ineligible player during the match played on 26 September 2025. The result of the match is upheld and shall stand. Now, the player in question is Patrick Kadu. Apparently, on the system, the digital player registry was not yet there. And reports do suggest that he did not have a formal contract, or there were issues with his contract with the club, and yet he played. So again, Kitara winning a decision in their favor when they had 2 members from their club on the panel, or at least formulating the panel. Now, if that's not conflict of interest, I do not know what is. Anyways, with that said, yesterday I think we had some games that were played for match day 16. Apologies. Yes, match day 16 from yesterday. Mbara City beat up against Calvary by 1-0. Police FC beat up against Lugazi by 2-1. Kitara beat up against Maroons by 0-0. Today, Vipers will play Bulls. Bull away to Bull. UPDF against Buhimba United Saints. NEC will be up against KCC AFC. Express will be up against Gaddafi. URA will take on Sports Club Vira. Now, in the work of those decisions and the results from yesterday, that means Vipers, who are leading the league table by 6 points, have since had that reduced to a mere point. Yep. Following the win against Mbara City for Kitara, sorry, not in Mbara City, following Kitara's win against Express, against Maroons, apologies, against Maroons, and then the 3 points added to them. So it is what it is. That's the context there that I wanted to build, the background for those decisions. Anyways, it's a controversial one. I do not think there was fairness. I do not think justice was served in this particular case. because I mean, you just can't condone that kind of, you just can't condone that kind of behavior. Why would you have two members of that panel be members because if I think the rules should be that if the members of the committee have a decision before them that directly affects their own club or that pertains their own club, those members should be recused and be replaced by temporary members from the federation or from the Uganda Premier League Secretariat. Or you could have two external members in waiting, so that if a decision is involving them or their club, they're not party to that decision. That's my thought. Anyways, let's move on. Let's move on to the case of Athletic Bilbao. Now, yesterday we did receive reports that Athletic Bilbao had been that a ban had been placed on them on doing any transfers until January 2028. Why? That implies that they will not be allowed to make any transfers in the summer of 2026, in January 2027, and the summer of 2027. So, and the question is why? A lot of people have been wondering why is that the case. Now, multiple sources will cite different reasons, but according to reliable sources with Marca, it says that this is due to a disagreement, internal and administrative matter at Athletic Bilbao, are likely a disagreement over players' rights. The club is expected to resolve that decision quite quickly, and then they will, have that, decision by FIFA rescinded or removed. We know that Athletic Bilbao are a club known for signing players from the Basque region or those that have grown within clubs or the Basque area. Now, that's in Spain. And then also, once in a while, they'll make an exception to that rule and sign a player from the outside. Like, I think there's a player that was signed. He's called Jesus what? Bilbao player called Jesus. Yes, they signed a player from Osasuna. There's a player called Jesus something from Osasuna that they signed from Osasuna. So once in a while, they'll make an exception to that rule. Yes, Jesus Areso, that's the player that was signed. So, but since it's an administrative matter, we'll wait for a resolution on that. But FIFA themselves did not categorically state any reasons for that, supposed ban. Anyways, let's move on to the Arsenal, because Arsenal have been making news for all the wrong reasons or the right reasons, depending on where you stand. And very, very interesting. Very, very interesting. Very interesting stuff. So Arsenal yesterday played it out to a 1-1 draw against Brentford at the GTEC Stadium. Noni Madueke on target there in the second half for Arsenal, while I think Lewis Potter scored to restore parity. A brilliant header at the back post to restore parity for the home side, as the two sides shared the spoils in a 1-1 draw. Now, Arsenal survived a Brentford scare because Brentford, I thought, were the better side on the day, despite Arsenal having domination in possession, but that's to the tune of 59%. But Arsenal hardly created any chances to score, because I think they had about 3 chances that they created in that game. And even when you look at their XG, it says it all. They had a 0.6 XG compared to a 1.5 of Brentford, who had about 48% of the ball, 41% of the ball. Brentford had a total of 12 shots, 3 on target, compared to Arsenal 7 and 2 on target. Big chances, Brentford 1, Arsenal 0. Corners were 6-4 in favor of Brentford. It's the kind of game that is synonymous with Arsenal, or that has been synonymous with Arsenal, every once in a few games over the last 2 seasons, struggling to break a team that plays with a low block, a team that is defensively organized. Yesterday, they were given a test of their own medicine when it came to set pieces, because even the equalizing goal for Brentford came through a long throw in by Coyote. He throws in the ball in the area. The ball is flicked on behind, and Lewis Potter heads it home into the back of the net. And yeah, so it's the kind of game. It was physical. Arsenal struggled to cope with the chaos that Brentford created within their own area. We saw them trying to cry foul play. David Raya trying to appeal to the referee for what he believed was that he was being fouled. Of course, it's only on one occasion where he's pulled to the floor that the referee brings play to a stop and the corner is retaken. But in the other incident, I thought, because I think it was either a free kick or a corner kick. I think it was a free kick. The ball is floated in. He tries to catch it, but can't grab it. And then, because instead of patching it away, he insisted on trying to catch it, and then he loses it. And then he was trying to claim he had been fouled. Had that goal been scored, trust me, there's no way that it was going to be given as a foul. It was the kind of game that had some poor decisions from a referee, David Brook, because there's a stupid yellow card that he awarded to Victor Gyökeres, which I did not think was a yellow card, because if that is a yellow card, then on the other side, you should be giving Noni Madueke a penalty and awarding a yellow card to the defender, because as light as a push it was on Noni Madueke, it was actually heavier in comparison to the one Victor Gyökeres had committed before getting his yellow card. So then Gabriel Magalhaes perhaps was a bit lucky in not getting a second booking, although I thought, it didn't. The foul in itself is the kind of foul where the referee, simply cautions the player to say, I mean, mate, you're already on a yellow card. You do not count your blessings too much, otherwise you'll get yourself sent off. So I understand the referee not giving a second yellow card, as much as a lot of people were advocating for it. My opinion about that is that if he had given a second yellow card, I do not think we would have debated it. It would have been an okay decision, But also, I am not one to believe that every foul should be a yellow card. That's why I'm critiquing the yellow card against Victor Gyökeres. So every now and then, and then you look at that Victor Gyökeres foul that gets him a yellow card and compare it to Phil Foden's foul against Calvin Bassey, for which he should have been given a red card and was walked away with the yellow card. And you're thinking, how are the two worlds equal? Not seen equal, but it is what it is. So really, that also happened. So that also happened. We'll just have to wait and see whether things can improve going forward in terms of the officiation of the game. But I thought Arsenal were very unconvincing. Now, Arsenal in the first half did not compete. They had 0 shots on target. They did not create any goal scoring chances. Ebeleche Eze struggled to find his footing in the game. I mean, they all struggled, but Eze struggled. And then Mikel Arteta decided to make some really poor changes. Poor in my opinion, really. And because I say poor because they did not work out. In the second half, he brings on Martin Odegaard. And I understand why he brings him on. And because he was without Kai Havertz, and of course, Ethan Nwaneri was sent out on loan, it's understandable that he thought that was the best option he had on the bench to bring on Martin Odegaard. But it did not work out. Why? I've never seen Martin Odegaard look that unfit. Forget when he's having a bad day in office, but he looked unfit to play. Same applied for Bukayo Saka when he came on for Noni Madueke. He looked unfit to play. He looked like his body was on the pitch, but his heart wasn't. His spirit wasn't. That's what it felt to me. A lot of moments felt like his mobility was lackluster, was lousy. I think there was only one incident when he tries to make the sprint to help defensively. But even then, you could see sort of the reservation of energy in him, just to suggest that he was not 100% fit for the game. Now, I understand that players at this level, at this occasion, you got to find a way of inspiring yourself, of lifting yourself up to the challenge and offer something. But Martin Odegaard and Bukayo Saka, for me, I thought in the place of Bukayo Saka, perhaps should have brought on Gabriel Jesus. I thought he would have been a better option because he can't play down that side. I remember when Martin Odegaard went down with the foul, I thought, well, if he needs to make a change, it was either of two options. Since you're chasing the game and you want goals, bring on Gabriel Jesus to play as your number 10. Simple. He can drift into midfield. He is capable of taking on players. He's good with the counter press. He can offer you that. He may not offer you the intricacy passing of, Martin Odegaard and the mobility of Martin Odegaard in terms of asking for the ball and distributing the ball, but he will offer you something. Alternatively, you go with Christian Norgard to come in at the pivot, play alongside Declan Rice, and then push Martin Zubimendi, to the forefront to help you with that ball distribution. We know he's very good at that, to play for you as a 10. Not that he would be the best candidate to play for you as a 10, but he's capable of implementing that role. In any case, some of the goals that he scored this season, popping up in the right areas, is indicative of his ability, of that flexibility that he can play for you that role. But eventually, we never got that. So they play on for the rest of the game, but they were far from it. You had a rescue moment through Christian Mosquera when he did well to recover and put in the block on Igor Thiago. Igor Thiago had another attempt on goal. He went for power and blazed that ball over the bar. You had David Raya being forced into two brilliant saves by Igor Thiago in the first half, because David Raya, with his poor distribution, threw the ball in Declan Rice's direction, targeted for him, but it was a loose throw, and it landed, and Brentford get the ball back, and they bring in the cross, for which Igor Thiago heads, and Raya makes amends with a brilliant save. Then I think in the second half again, I think it was Igor Thiago that forces him into a save. So really, it was that kind of game that you saw. On the side of Brentford, they were very good at breaking up play. They denied Arsenal spaces. They denied Arsenal comfort on the ball in terms of overall ball distribution and build-up, because you know how Arsenal will deploy the tactic of passing the ball against an opponent literally into bottom until they create that space. Yesterday, they did not get that. I thought Leandro Trossard struggled to have an impact on the game. Noni Madueke, whereas he scored the goal for the Arsenal, he looked average, just like majority of those Arsenal players. A lot of times you felt his decision-making was lacking or was poor in when to play the quick pass and when to hold on to the ball. So things like that. So it was another day that Arsenal struggled to break a low block and the mid-block kind of play. Their set-piece play was ineffective. I thought Brentford did well to keep them at bay. And then with one of the last key moments of the game, Arsenal get the breakthrough. Victor Gyökeres does nice to hold up the play, plays in Urian Timber, and then Urian Timber goes forward, passes the ball to Gabriel Martinelli, who you expect to strike that ball first time. He decides to take one extra touch, and then Kaumen Kelleher literally gets the time to come in, adjust his body, and makes a brilliant save and gets away with that. And it remains 1-1. So it was a game that offered very little moments, especially you're an Arsenal fans. It created more nail-biting moments for the Arsenal fans than it did for Brentford fans. In any case, you felt if there was a more deserving team to win the game, it was Brentford on the night. They caused a lot of discomfort to that Arsenal side. But beyond my prediction that Arsenal would win the game 2-1, I did suggest that it was going to be a very difficult game at the GTEC Stadium for the Arsenal because we've seen what Brentford had been able to do at the GTEC Stadium, losing only 2 fixtures at home against Nottingham Forest by 2-0 and against Man City by 0-0. Man City won there with Brad Erling goal, but it was never an easy game. It's one where you take the 1-0 win and say, well, 3 points in the bag it is. But we didn't have a good day in office. We're talking about a team who beat up against Liverpool by 3-2 there, beat up against Newcastle by 3-1, beat up against Man United by similar scoreline. So lots of big teams have gone to the GTEC Stadium and got punished there by Brentford. So really, it was quite a very, very impressive performance. I mean, for what's it worth, when it came to the effectiveness of Brentford's set pieces, whether it was a throw in, a free kick, or a corner kick. I mean, you're talking about a team who, at the start of the season, appointed Keith Andrews, who was their set piece coach 6 months earlier before the departure of Thomas Frank. And then they have another set piece coach. So, in other words, the head coach and another set piece coach combine heads to create the perfect chaos that you'd expect to cause against a team like Arsenal, who we know that when they've come up against low blocks and struggled against teams that defend quite well, deeply, they've looked onto set pieces to create the moments that rescue for them 3 points. Unfortunately for them, yesterday that wasn't the case. I think if you're Arsenal, you take the point, quite disappointedly in your own performance, but you will take the point that at least you did not lose the game, lick your wounds and move on. Next, they have a weekend fixture against Wigan Athletic over the weekend in the FA Cup, and after that, they will play away to Wolverhampton Wanderers. Another very, very difficult fixture that they are going to encounter if the blueprint of the first leg that they managed to win by 2-1, regardless of the fact that they did not score a single goal in that game, speaks to tell you that it's going to be another difficult game for them, even though they will be up against the bottom side on the Premier League table. So, Mikel Arteta needs to find ways of motivating his team to try and find the spark in that team as going forward. Otherwise, it did not look a very, very pretty result. I thought, those key moments. Again, I thought they lacked speed because I've said this before. When you play against teams like play that's one, you're going to need to make as many attempts on goal from distance. I didn't think they did that. You're going to try and find a tiny little bit of space in a quick play and then try to get an advantage to take your shot on goal. They did not do that. There's a moment where Declan Rice has an opportunity in the area to try and have a shot at goal. He decides to pass the ball to Victor Gyökeres, for who, as he opens up his leg to take a strike at the ball, Michael Kayode comes with a timely intervention and clears that ball away. So that was another missed opportunity. So in the end, Arsenal did themselves no favors. But yeah, that means their point lead at the summit of the Premier League table has been reduced from 6 points to 4 points, following Man City's victory against Fulham the day earlier by 3-0. Now, again, that's Arsenal's 6th draw of the season. So they've had a draw against Brentford, against Chelsea, against Nottingham Forest, against Liverpool, against Man City, So, I mean, last season, one of the reasons as to why Arsenal did not favorably compete for the Premier League title is because they had one too many draws. They had as many as 14 draws. This season, they already have 6, and it's only match day 26. We still have 12 games to play, I said this before, a couple of weeks ago. Arsenal cannot afford 3 losses in their remaining fixtures. Anything within that region, they've lost the Premier League title. But more importantly, they can't afford too many draws either. Because like I said, Man City are breathing down their necks. 16 games won, 5 draws, 5 losses. Of course, Arsenal remain as a team to have lost the least number of games. But that's not enough. You ought to do more. you ought to do more. So they will know that for sure. But their poor run of form does continue because they've only had 9 points, I think, from the last 6 Premier League games. Out of a possible 18, they've gathered only 9 points. And that's really, really poor. That's really, really poor. Really, really poor for any side, especially if your aim is to win the Premier League title. Because they've had a 1-1 draw against Brentford, a win against Sunderland, a win against Leeds, that's 7 points, right? A draw against Forest and Liverpool, that's 9 points, and a loss to Manchester United. So they will know that they ought to do better. Anyways, we'll leave that at that. Moving on. Yesterday, Thomas Tuchel did agree to a new contract with England to remain the manager until June 2028. Now, of course, this comes as a huge blow to any clubs that may have been pondering appointing the German gaffer as their head coach or manager with Manchester United among those clubs, in the firm, because we know that they had conversations with him in the summer of 2024 when they were looking to make a decision on the future of Erik ten Hag then. So, but it's great news for the England national team. So all we can say is congratulations, Thomas Tuchel, very good manager. We'll wait and see how his team performs at the FIFA World Cup. But speaking of managers or head coaches, the Brazil national team are also planning to hand Carlo Ancelotti a 4-year contract, according to the New York Times. They are planning to hand Carlo Ancelotti a new 4-year contract that will see him stay at the helm of the Brazil national team until June 2030. So quite impressive news coming through there. If you're a Brazil national team fan like I, even though I feel that we have a good manager in Carlo Ancelotti, but we do not have a good squad. I've never felt less spirited about Brazil or very doubtful of the talent that Brazil have on the table than I am today. And yet I've watched Brazil have a striker like Joe, for those of you that remember him at Manchester City. Now, present day, you have a lot of players with potential, but are failing to live to that potential. Look at players like Rodrigo Goes, Richarlison. Those are our players. Bruno Guimaraes, very good player, but sometimes I feel not good enough by Brazilian standards. Jolinton, Matheus Cunha, Gabriel Martinelli, and Endrick, Vinicius Jr., very good player, but hasn't lived to the bidding as far as the national team is concerned. So it's really, really, really tough. It's really, really tough. It's really, really tough. Being a Brazil national team fan and going into the World Cup 2026, to be honest, I'm not very hopeful that we'll perform wonders in that competition. Anything can happen, but I'm not quite hopeful. I'm not quite optimistic. When I look around at the level of talent, we do not have that much. We do not have that much. Hi, Pedri, how are you doing? Chronicles of Costaism, Ronaldo or Messi, both brilliant players, exceptional. We've been lucky to watch them play. So wherever your cards fall, they're both great players. Pedri, how are you? I hope you're okay. I hope you're mourning pineapple juice. Pick one. I wouldn't pick one. I would play both if I had to in the same team. I'll play both. I hope Messi is the right answer. Ronaldo is just I won't read that. Chronicles is saying Sui. So you have a Messi fan in Pedri, you have a Cristiano Ronaldo fan in Chronicles over Costaism. Yes. So Pedri, I hope your glass of pineapple juice this morning has helped you recover from the losses of last night. Speaking of losses from last night, Barcelona were at the receiving end of a 4-0 drubbing at the hands of Atletico Madrid in the first leg of the semi-finals of the Copa del Rey. Even what they thought had been a mere consolation for them through Pau Kubasi was eventually ruled out for an offside. I mean, it couldn't have been more a bad day for Barcelona in office than it was yesterday. I do not think, other than their loss to Chelsea earlier on in the UEFA Champions League, I do not think I've seen Barcelona that poor in a game of football in recent times. Chronicle says, bro, who do you think has the best chance of winning the World Cup? Best chance of winning the World Cup? Okay, I'll talk about the favorites. Who I think will be the favorites. One, Spain has to be among them, the reigning champions of the Euros. England is one of them. They have a good coach, Thomas Tuchel. They have a fair share of a good squad. Not the most talented, but coherently, they're a good team. I can talk about German have not looked good in recent times, but I can never rule them out. They have that element about them, about playing competitions. I was just talking about Brazil earlier on, that even though they have the pedigree, most successful team in World Cup football with 5 titles, I do not think they have enough talent there unless Carlo Ancelotti works his magic. But a lot of those players for me are below average. I don't think Brazil has produced the kind of talent that we are really accustomed, we've really been accustomed to over the years. You talk about France, yeah, France have a very good team, but more importantly, they are forward. When it comes to their midfield, that's where I have reservations. That's why, yes, they will compete, France will compete, but that midfield, I am still a bit skeptical because I remember watching them at, I think, the semi-finals of the UEFA Nations League. And when you look at their forward lines, Rando Kolomwani, Desile Doué, Bradley Bakola, Kylian Mbappe, Ryan Cherki, Michael Olise, they just spoiled for choice in those forward areas. They just spoiled for choice. They have a lot of talent in those areas. But when it comes to their midfield, you can't help it feel like they're lightweight because they no longer have a Blaise Matuidi. They no longer have a Paul Pogba. Yes, they have an Adrien Rabiot who is, on the faces there. I think at AC Milan, but he's far from his best that we were used to. Look, maybe N'Golo Kante may be fitted in there, but still, he's not the N'Golo Kante of 4, 5, 6 years ago. Yes, he can turn on the performance, but it's not just about him. I remember watching Didier Deschamps field a team that had, I think, 4 or 5 attacking players and sacrificing that midfield. And then Spain walloped him. Yes, that game ended 5-4 in favor of Spain, but that midfield was too lightweight. Then their backline is one that has suffered so many injuries. Theo Hernandez, Benjamin Pavard, good players, but they get injuries. Dayot Upamecano playing alongside Ibrahim Konate is almost colossal. So then that means you have William Saliba. Up front, you still have the likes of Jean-Philippe Mateta that want to break through that team. So France has a very good forward line, but midfield quite lacking. Spain are an overall balanced team, but they lack that cutting edge in front, that target man. Because for me, I think Mikel Oyarzabal and Alvaro Morata are below par, but they compensate with the overall team play and having excellent players that are capable of rising to the occasion. The likes of Lamine Yamal, the likes of Nico Williams, Nico Williams, a brother to Inaki Williams, who are not at their very best, who can turn up on any given day, but, so that's it for me on that side. Okay, let me read the other comments. But I hope that responds to your question about who I think will win the World Cup. Meanwhile, but before I get to that, yesterday Barcelona, I saw Barcelona fans blaming the Atletico Madrid turf playing field, the turf, for the goal Joan Garcia conceded, because when was it Eric Garcia who passes that ball, the back pass? Somehow it's a low line pass, but then the ball starts bouncing off, and it's those two bounces that it goes through before reaching to Joan Garcia that causes him to miscalculate. Yes. So okay. Pedri says I had mango juice instead. Hans said if we win 2-0 in each half, in the second leg we can make it. We still believe we did it 6-0 down in PSG. Easily, we can easily come back. Hopefully, it wasn't 6-0. I think it was what? Was it 4-1 or 5-1? But it wasn't 6-0 against PSG. That's if the teams do not leave the tournament. You asked about France. We discussed France. You said agree. I slept yesterday and Barca lost. Yeah, Barcelona lost quite terribly by 4-0 there. An own goal from Joan Garcia. Then a goal from Ademola Lookman, a goal from Julian Alvarez and Antoine Griezmann. Those were the goal scorers yesterday. I regret it accidentally slept in intermatch. If they can score 4, we can score 6. Okay. Pedri, we just can't concede more. Codidi, Fran Donkey, Eric Garcia. Okay. Yes, it was raining and then the ball bounces because of the rain. What a stupid club and stupid pitch. Okay. Look, man, it's guy. Anyway, so guys, let's be honest about this. Just as much as Barcelona can mount the perfect comeback against Atletico de Madrid, first of all, they will have to avoid conceding. That's the first task, because conceding makes it difficult for them. 2, they would hope that Diego Simeone does not look back at his old days to put on a defensive masterclass, because whereas he may not have the similar set of players, if he were to switch back to the version of him of 2011, then Barcelona can possibly only win by 0-0. We will have Pedri and Rafinha back, hopefully. Hansi Flick will come back. I'm saying this. We'll have to wait and see. When is the reverse fixture? Is it next week? But no, it can't be next week, because Atletico de Madrid are going to be in the playoffs of the UEFA Champions League. Rafinha will play like how Neymar played against PSG. March 3rd. Okay, March 3rd. Let's wait. That's about slightly a fortnight away. Let's wait and see. But and to be fair, Barcelona had some chances in there. They hit the crossbar, and then there was that save from Mosso on, I think, was it Fermin Lopez? So it's not like they didn't create any chance to score. They were just not clinical enough. They're just not clinical enough. If they had been clinical, maybe they would have scored some 2 goals in there, But that wasn't the case. So on another day, perhaps, Barcelona walk away with a goal out of that one. But it wasn't a pretty result, really. And in any case, if Diego Simeone loses the return leg and is knocked out, then he may as well step down as Atletico de Madrid manager, as well as he's highly regarded in the history of the club. I think Do you know macaroni? No, I always hear about it. Macaroni and cheese. I don't know. What's the difference between macaroni and spaghetti? What's the difference? Tell me. For a moment there, I thought you meant moroconi. In Uganda, we have a dish called moroconi. It's cow foot. He is a YouTuber. Mr. Tribe, they defended for 90 minutes like donkeys, stupid idiots. Let's wait and see. Let's wait and see what will be of the reverse fixture. But yeah, anyways, guys, allow me wrap it up here and run to my other duties. It's been a very nice conversation, even though some of you arrived late to the party, but still, nonetheless, I do appreciate your time that you dedicate to the channel. Like I keep saying, go over to the video section, watch all those videos. Yesterday we did, publish 2 videos. We'll have to wait and see. Meanwhile, as if the day couldn't be any worse, Barcelona had to be reduced to 10 men. Anyways, okay, let me see. Spaghetti is long, pasta, macaroni is small, circle pasta. Okay, Ronald Araujo will come back, hopefully. Let's just wait and see. Let's just wait and see. A lot can happen in the next 2 weeks, Can you get Guardiola as a guest to this channel? Pedri, I'll be glad if you could knock at his door somewhere in Barcelona and request him on my behalf to, show up. It would mean the world for both me and the channel itself and the football world at large, anyways, like Obama said, dreams of my father. Well, dreams of this channel. Those are the things we dream about on this channel. Jersey giveaway. I'd like to do those things, but if I'm being honest, I'm not. I do not have the financial legroom to do it at the moment, especially bearing in mind that the channel is not monetized. If the channel was fetching in a couple of dollars, I would sacrifice that for a couple of Jersey giveaways. But until we cross that bridge, it's still a bit economically not viable for me to press those kinds of things. But hopefully, with time, we can cross those bridges and start the giveaways and do more contests and things like that when it comes to that. Okay, it's been a pleasure, Pedri. It's been a pleasure, Pedri Bola and Mestro Pedri, as well as who else? Chronicles of Costaism, and every single one of you that has been part of the broadcast. Have a blessed day. I'll see you guys later. Bye-bye for now.